Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So we're coming back to Phantom Knight, and one thing I definitely saw in the comments of the last Phantom Knight deck profile was people asking, why aren't you playing Droplet? And yeah, I totally agree. There's kind of no reason for me to not be on the droplets here. I think I was on Drolls last time instead. But in this new meta, not even just in this Snake Eye meta, well, I mean, of course, Droplet is much better than Droll in this new meta. But it's not just that. Droplet is also just a phenomenal card in Adventure Phantom Knight in general. Because our cards have so many, like, relevant graveyard effects, right? Excuse me, we can actually drop it away. In some situations, you can, I'm not even exaggerating, if your opponent makes like a giant, 5 monster board that they all disrupt or negate or whatever, there are some hands where you can actually drop it for 5, throw out your whole hand going second, negate all 5 of their monsters, and then still like combo out and win. Really, it just is a matter of being able to summon Breaksword, go into Raider's Knight, and then go into Arc Rebellion. So really, this deck has a lot of ability to, going second, just steal games with the droplets here. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with everyone who's saying that like you need to be on droplet for this deck. I definitely agree, and I should have been playing it before. But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot has changed with the build aside from the inclusion of droplets. Again, I think I'm pretty sure I took out like Drolls or Triple Tax if I was playing those or something, but otherwise it's pretty much all the same stuff you would expect to see for Adventure Phantom Knight, right? The Water Enchantress to 2 is definitely the other big change for this deck, with the ban list, that is what, little over a week and a half, almost 2 weeks old at this point. Definitely love to see the Enchantress back at 2. I do, anyway, as I'm sure you can tell by all the adventure decks that I've been posting lately. But this deck doesn't particularly need Enchantress to be at 2, because it can actually make the Cherubini and send it as part of its regular combo line. Like, of course we can do that with Terror Top as well, but even in your regular plays, you're still going to make Cherubini and then send the Water Enchantress. But that doesn't mean we still only play one. I think the second copy is still definitely very good, because if you open the Water Enchantress and are able to do the adventure line, then that means that you can use your Cherubini to then send an extra Phantom Knight card, monster rather, to the graveyard instead, which is very, very helpful a lot of the time. I usually just send Ragged Gloves, because that'll give you the most variety of what you're able to send. It can send everything else that the Cherubini can, plus also Fogblade, which you do sometimes need in the graveyard, so I think that having multiple Water Enchantress, like I said, even though you can mill one as part of your combo line, is still very good, because it will act as an extender in a roundabout way if you open it. So, but yeah, again, like I said, this build isn't really too different, but I think that's more than anything else a testament to how good Phantom Knight is as a deck. I say it literally every time I cover this deck, but I think it just very much bears repeating that even before the more recent ban list changes of Water Enchantress and Terror Top coming back to, well, just not being limited, right? This deck was still good during that period of time. The only period of time I would say it was really not that great was during Tier 0 format, when there are multiple Shizu Shufflers around, right? Or like multiple copies of each, because this deck does lose pretty hard to Shizu Shufflers, but yeah, with those no longer being meta relevant pretty much at all, I would definitely say that Phantom Knight, in any format where there's not a lot of graveyard hate, I think Phantom Knight is pretty much always going to be either a lower tier 3 or upper rogue deck, like somewhere in that range, right? Like, like with a lot of decks I cover, I'm not claiming that this is like the most optimal deck tier 1 that you could play to always win on ladder ever, but it's a really fun deck that does very well, and can get you to, whatever goal you're looking for. DL level max, Master 1, topping a Master Duel tournament. This is a kind of deck that could definitely get you there. Easy. Well, easy I say, but it really depends on like the amount of it really comes down to like learning the build and learning the ins and outs of it. One question that I actually got asked while we were streaming these games, because these duels we're out to see, I did actually play live on stream. So if you are interested in seeing the live versions of those, you can check out the description below, where I have links to not only my Twitch channel, where I post recent VODs, but also my second YouTube channel, where I upload the Twitch VODs, especially after they are, because Twitch only keeps the VODs for so long, so that way I have the second YouTube channel to archive them. So I know I see a lot of people asking about live games, so you can definitely check those out if you want to see some live gameplay, or also just follow over on Twitch, that way you get notifications of when I do go live. But anyway, yeah, so I had somebody ask me in chat, I think maybe even a couple of people were like, you know, they were saying like, I love Phantom Knight, but I feel like this deck bricks a lot. And it's true, there are a lot of hands that you can get with this deck that don't look particularly impressive, but really, at the end of the day, if you can just get 2 level 3 monsters on the field, then you should have enough to have plays, regardless of if you're going first or second. You can either go for Cherubini and start dumping stuff and doing a combo line, or you can go into Breaksword to potentially pivot into either Arc Rebellion or Zeus if you're going second, for a, like, kind of a comeback, right? And of course, there is also just using any 2 monsters to make the Vert Anaconda and going for DPE. Like, you know, going for DPE and nothing else might not sound very impressive. And to be fair, in the grand scheme of what is all happening in this meta, it's not. But it's better than nothing, and it will get you a lot further than you might think a lot of the time. DPE is definitely still not a bad card at all. Oh, I remember last time I was playing Dasher instead of Mally. I'm definitely back on Mally. Not a fan of Dasher at all compared to Mally. Just the extra bodies that it gives, especially with the Denier. If a follow-up play is going into access code for an OTK, like the Nightmare Unicorn access code line, it's so good. Yeah, 100% malicious over Dasher for your Destiny heroes of choice to make the DPE with. Yeah, I don't think I really have too much else to say about this build that I haven't already, so let's break it down card by card and watch these replays. So we're going to be on 3 Max C, 3 Speedroid Terratop, 1 Speedroid Takatomborg, 2 the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak, 3 the Phantom Knights of Silent Boots, we got 1 the Phantom Knights of Ragged Gloves, 3 Ash Blossom of Joyous Spring, 3 the Phantom Knights of Torn Scale, 1 Destiny Hero Denier, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 2 Destiny Hero Malicious, 1 Wandering Griffin Rider, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 2 Fusion Destiny, 2 Rite of Armistier, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 1 the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, and then 2 the Phantom Knights Fogblade. And that's going to be our 42 card main deck. We are over 40 because we have the Speedroid plus Adventure package. There's a decent amount of stuff here we're not necessarily looking to open, right? For the extra deck, we're on 1 Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 1 Levier the Sea Dragon, 2 the Phantom Knights of Breaksword, 1 Raiders Knight, 1 Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon, 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus Sky Thunder, 1 Link Spider, 1 Salmon Great Almirage, 1 Cherubini Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardish, and then finally 1 Access Code Talker. That will do it for our list. Let's see these duels now. Okay, so these are going to be more Duelist Cup games. I've been trying to be better about this, watching the games ahead so I know what our opponents are on. But our opponent's actually not going to get to play too much stuff here in the way of showing off what their deck is. Now, this is a hand that might not look like it has too many plays to it, right? You know, you're probably seeing this and thinking like, oh, so these are the kind of hands that, like, you know, the deck can get where you can't necessarily combo. It might look that way, but believe it or not, a hand that looks like this is not only a full combo, we can actually even do it through Disruption. And here's how. We're going to start with the Rite of Armistier, getting our Adventure token, and placing the Fateful Adventure. Now I'm going to special summon Water Enchantress off her own effect. That'll proc the Fateful effects to add the equip spell, is what I want to do, but my opponent has an Ash Blossom here. So unfortunately, I will have to discard another card for the Fateful, but that's actually not terrible here. Pitching the Fogblade is potentially even better than discarding the equip spell. So, go summon out the Griffin Rider, then normal summon the Speedroid Takatomborg, linking off the Water Enchantress that I specialed off her own effect with the normal Takatomborg for Cherubini. Now, Cherubini is going to send Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak. I can use Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak to banish itself and then add Torn Scales from my deck to my hand, which I can then summon. Oh, sorry, I said I normal summoned Takatomborg earlier. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I was actually able to special summon Takatomborg because I do control a wind monster. Takatomborg merely requires that you control a wind monster in order to special summon excuse me, discard from your hand. So I did misspeak. Misspeak there. I apologize. We are going to normal summon the Torn Scales that we added off the Ancient Cloak that we sent off Cherubini. I'll link those two for the the Rusty Bardish. Set the Shade Brigandine from deck. Now we can use the Fog Blade to bring back the Silent Boots that we milled off the Rusty Bardish. Linking the Torn Scales and Silent Boots for the Levier. This is actually really important. It kind of seems like it might be an optional step, but I think it is very mandatory, because if you just go straight into Vert Anaconda, then all your stuff is going to get banished and you won't have any follow-up. Levier will not only put the materials under it into the graveyard, but we can pull the Ancient Cloak out of the banish and put that into the graveyard as well. So, again, this not only sets up the Vert into DPE, but also gives us a graveyard full of relevant effects for our follow-up turn. And putting Denier in Maui also does the exact same thing, right? Like, we have access to so much stuff here for the next turn. It's kind of unreal. We even get to search a Fog Blade for a little bit of disruption follow-up as well. Oh, and then we'll grab a Rite of Artemis here, because there's no reason not to. So again, you know, that hand did not look like it had plays at all at a glance, right? Again, looking at what we started with, it was, yeah, especially opening Takaton Borg, it's like, this is probably the card that a lot of people are dreading opening, but again, in a deck like this, particularly Phantom Knights, it's not even that bad to open Takaton Borg, because it is, if nothing else, level 3. And again, if we just get 2 level 3s on the field, we can make plays from there. And as I said, we even played through our opponent's Ash Blossom there, so yeah, that's why I said I'm not really sure what we are going to be playing against for this first duel, because Godslayer decided they did not want to deal with this board. And you might be thinking like, oh, this board is just like an Omni and a Pop, right? That's not that much, is it? We're actually going to take a look at a duel where we'll do the turn 1 combo line again, but this time we get to see exactly how much it actually is and how difficult it can be to play through. So let's look at that next. Okay, so that's going to be this game here that I was talking about at the end of the last one. Our opponent here is going to be on Snake Eye. Once again, we are going to be going first and doing the turn 1 combo line. Don't worry, we are going to see a duel. The next one here will be a going second game. And again, we're not opening any of the Phantom Knights monsters, but we do still have more than enough to do plays here. I'm going to start with the Terratop for the Takaton Borg, special that, and then go for the Cherubini. Now, as I mentioned in the deck profile, because we have the Water Enchantress in our hand already, we can actually just bin the Ragged Gloves here. Opponent's got an Ash Blossom for the Enchantress F. I'm going to use the Called By, of course. Yeah, definitely want to use the Call By there. I mean, duh, of course, it's Ash Blossom, but like, I don't know, sometimes it's a little tempting to hold on to Call By sometimes, but not in this situation. It's like, especially if what it's getting you is not only more bodies, but also an Omni Negate. Because I don't know, it's interesting. There are definitely times where you can just let an Ash Blossom go through. This wasn't one of them, though. So I used the Ragged Gloves to dump an Ancient Cloak, which I probably should have just put in the graveyard in the first place. I actually think that not having the Ragged Gloves in there kind of comes back to bite me here in a little bit. This is going to be a turn 1 combo line, but I'm going to have to play it a little bit differently. Just kind of because of the overall lack of resources I have here, right? So, okay, summoning the Griffin Rider, equipping the Draco back. Yeah, because I only have Torn Scales in my graveyard right now. So, Bardish, what did I send here? I sent Silent Boots and then set Fog Blade. I should have set the Shade Brigandine. I think that was my problem. I think that was totally my problem. If I had set Shade Brigandine, I would still, instead of the Fog Blade from the deck, off the Bardish F, I would still have Silent Boots in the graveyard. Although, I don't think that would actually allow me to go into Levier, though, still. Because my main problem here is that I'm not going to be able to go into Levier. And as I mentioned during the last game, that's how you're going to get a lot of your follow-up. Oh, but then I could have sent... Yeah, okay, that's why I needed the gloves. Okay, so here's actually where I messed up. I just realized it. It's because I sent gloves instead of cloak off of the Cherubini earlier, right? Because if I had sent just cloak, I would still have gloves in the deck. I could have sent that, banished it for the Fog Blade. Well, I would have had to have not only done that, but also set the Shade Brigandine off of the Bardish instead of the Fog Blade. Then I could have used gloves to send the Fog Blade from the deck to my graveyard. brought back Silent Boots, and then overlaid Silent Boots, and yeah, and then gone for Levier. So that was a misplay on my part. It's like a minor one, but it's both minor and not, because it doesn't matter. Like, not having follow-up for the next turn is actually a little bit scary, I'm not gonna lie. Even though our board is still looking phenomenal here. Okay, so like I said, our opponent is going to be on Snake Eye, but they're playing the Cashier build, so they're going to lead with Unicorn. I'm just going to use the Fog Blade on it. I don't have to worry about either of the effects here. But of course, Unicorn doesn't even necessarily mean it's Cash yet, because they're going to pitch Poplar for the Diabell now. Diabell and Poplar are both going to activate. That's fine, I don't feel the need to negate anything so far. I think this is a deck that really rewards you for being patient with your Disruption. Okay, setting the Subversion. I'll let them activate that, because whatever they target, yeah, if they're going to target the Griffin Rider, I can just negate. And if they were going to target something else, I can just use DPE to pop that card, so. Alright, they're linking off the Unicorn and the Diabell. Is this for Dark, I believe? Yeah, Dark, the Dark Charm, or Gloomy. It's pretty clear to me they're baiting out, because they haven't used their normal summon yet, so. I think they're trying to bait out as much of my Disruption as they can before committing to that. I'll definitely pop there so they can't take the chair beating and go for like an Apo or an access code. Okay, here's the Snake Eye Ash. We do have the Forbidden Droplet for it. I'll just send the Vert Anaconda. If I hadn't used DPE on the Dracoback, I could have sent that as well. But yeah, that'll be enough for them to concede here. So yeah, again, the Phantom Knight inboard might not necessarily look like the most to have to play through in the world. But as we can see here, I think that it's still a sufficient amount of disruption to end on. It's more than other decks, some other decks, rewards you for being patient with your disruption, which is not, that's a skill that I think about a lot, but I never see other people talk about, is like, people will complain if you put, like, you know, multiple negates on your end board, but I think there is definitely a skill to using those negates in an efficient way, because it's so easy to blow through them all too quickly, or to be too scared and try to wait for a better effect, only let your opponent make plays anyway. I've won duels that I shouldn't have for both reasons, and I think, I don't know, I just think in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a huge disrespect for that skill of using your disruptions. Like, people say, oh, make 3, 4, 5 negates as if that's an auto win, and to be fair, of course it gives you a big advantage, but using those negates, using the disrupts you make on your big end board is definitely a skill in and of itself as well. Yeah, we have a couple more games. Like I said, this next one is going to be going second, so let's check that out. Indeed, this is a going second game, as I mentioned, and we are against Labyrinth. So, if I recall correctly, Lab is going to try to pull some shenanigans on us here with the new transaction rollback card. So, yeah, they can take the first turn. We do have an Earth Insect in our hand, but against Lab, it's like, you're often not even going to get that many draws here. Like, even in this situation where they have the Ariane, you know, this is probably like the best case scenario for me to have Maxi against the Lab deck, and I'm only going to end up drawing, I think, 2 cards off of it, so I can summon Ariana, add the big welcome. I'm going to take a sip of water here, actually. Baguska set 3. We definitely do not like seeing that. I'm going to lead with the Terratop. Opponent's actually going to chain the Maxi. That's 100% fine. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to try to play through this Baguska anyway, but now I'm definitely not going to. I'm just going to T-set the Ragged Gloves and Fog Blade and then just pass over to my opponent. Baguska's going to detach a material. Opponent doesn't do anything. They just pass right back over to me. Alright, now I can use the Fog Blade to try to negate this Baguska, but the opponent's actually going to use Big Welcome Lab here in response. And they have the Lady Lab in hand, so that's a little dicey. They also still have 2 back rows, so even though I did negate Baguska, it seems we still have at least something to try to play through here, right? Gonna do Fateful Adventure next. Opponent flips up Eradicator, sacking the Lady and calling trap cards. I thought they were going to call spell cards, actually, but nope. They're actually calling the trap cards here, but that makes sense because they want to get rid of the Fog Blade, which will make their Baguska live again. Now, the more observant among you might have noticed that the Ariane pitched a transaction rollback earlier, so that is something to note for sure. We're going to flip up the Ragged Gloves to then link off into the Cherubini. Going to activate my Fateful Effect to add the Dracoback here. Cherubini is going to send the Ancient Cloak, because, again, I have the Water Enchantress in hand. Now I can add the Rite of Armistier. And I was really expecting that transaction rollback from the opponent, but it's not coming yet. I'm going to use the right for the adventure token. Fateful is going to add another water enchantress and then discard the Dracoback. Dracoback F to then equip to the adventure token. Oh, that's right. Excuse me. You might be wondering why I didn't add the Griffin Rider here. This was my first game. This duel was my first duel with this build. I forgot it. Bad habit of mine. I don't know why, but with the adventure engine, I always forget one of the cards in the initial draft. It's usually the Dracoback, but this time I forgot the Griffin Rider, if you can actually believe it. But it's okay, we don't need it to win here. We actually don't either. Opponent finally using the transaction rollback to call spell cards. I don't know why they waited this long. They really should have done it when the Rite of Armistier was added to my hand. Because now I have an extra body on the board, and I can just go for a Nightmare Unicorn here. Nightmare Unicorn F to pitch the Water Enchantress, and I'll spin their back row, because I still have my normal summon. I can use that for Torn Scales here, and then link that off in order to make the access code. Because remember, Baguska can only negate, like, Baguska forces everything into defense mode, and then negates the effect of defense mode monsters, but Link monsters, of course, cannot be turned into defense mode. Since my opponent already paid half their life points to use transaction rollback, it's a simple matter of swinging with this access code for a game. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So if they had used the transaction rollback and called spells earlier, yeah, I mean, I would have definitely been in a more precarious situation because I would have been able to go for Rusty Bardish, but 2100, I think that's how much defense Baguska has. I don't think I would have been able to battle over it. Well, but you know what? I can't actually do Aegis effect because Baguska forces it. Yeah, I don't know. If they had just used the transaction rollback sooner, I don't know why they let me summon the token, but that is definitely the reason why I was able to win the duel. Well, you know what, though? I would have been able to normal Torn Scales and actually use its effect. Well, no, I couldn't have used the effect because of Baguska, so never mind. Yeah, no, I think they should have just done that. But anyway, we have one more game to check out. Let us go into it here. Okay, this one's going to be a bit of a doozy. It's a 16-turn duel against Runic Stun. Yeah, as soon as you heard me say 16 turns, you could probably guess we were playing against a stun variant, but not only we're playing against a stun variant, our opening hand is just garbage. I'm actually going to throw this game in fast forward just because of how long it is and for how many kind of non-turns we're going to have, right? Opponent's going to lead with a Flashing Fire for the Hugin F pitch shifter. I'm going to use the Ash Blossom here so they can't add the Fountain. They do still get to put up the Dimensional Fissure, which is going to be the bane of my existence for this entire duel. On top of my, as you can see, already just pretty miserable opening hand. Now, Droplet can't send monsters to the graveyard for the cost anymore, but it can still send spell and trap cards, so the Droplet is not, like, dead here. Alright, finally getting a monster I can normal summon. I'm going to do the Denier. Although, I will say battling over the Hugin here kind of doesn't do anything. Because now I can just use another Runic spell and try to add Fountain. Is what I thought until they went for Border here. Also, thankfully for me, they didn't actually skip their battle phase here. Okay, so here, I used the Droplet from my hand. And actually did that intentionally instead of using my face down Droplet because I wanted my opponent to think that I top-decked Droplet and didn't just have it set face down the entire time, right? By using it from my hand, I am potentially misdirecting them into thinking that one of that neither of my two face downs are Droplet, when in fact one of them is. The only reason I haven't Dropleted so far is because I haven't really needed to, but now I can Droplet and have the attack of Inspector Border, battle over it with Denier, have access to monster effects again. So, you know, this is how a lot of stun games just tend to go. Of course, the game is going to go on for longer, but it's also about being patient, right? I can definitely understand for people who don't have, like, a lot of time to play why you would want to... Oh, by the way, sorry, we're going in fast forward, so I want to pause here. But I can definitely understand why people who don't have a lot of time in the day to play would just, like, snap concede. I don't think there's anything wrong with just snap conceding a matchup you don't want to play. Honestly, in general, right? Like, if your goal is simply to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're not super concerned about breaking up, or if you don't have a lot of time to play, then yeah, I think snap conceding a matchup like this is more than understandable. But if your goal is to play and ultimately improve at the game and rank up, and, like, you know, top and win tournaments and all that fun stuff, you need to practice playing through situations like this, right? Because I think a lot of players would write off a game state like this as unwinnable, when it really comes down to just like being patient and grinding out the game here. So the reason I use my Fog Blade on the Amano Iwano, by the way, is so that I could Ash Blossom the Runic Fountain here. This will keep it on the field, yes, but I'm fine with that if it means that my opponent is not drawing 3 cards. The triple attack as their last card was very brutal here, and does this look familiar? Yeah, opponent is going to end up making a Baguska here. Now, I do have the Droplet and the Fog Blade that I just drew to negate the Baguska. The problem is I still don't have plays because my hand is ass. This is, I mean, I know I said before, like, oh, you can play through a lot of bad hands, but sometimes you just actually don't have anything. Like, what was our opening hand here? It was like Malicious, Fog Blade. Oh, jeez. Yeah, Dracoback, Mally, Fog Blade, Droplet, Ash Blossom. Not the most amount of things you can do with that, but unfortunately for me, now the opponent is actually starting to cycle the fountain here. I am going to make a play for Zeus, going for that. I want to use it now before my opponent has an opportunity to draw a card that can negate it, but they actually had an Imperm down already, so yeah, that's a bit of an oof. God, if that Zeus had resolved, I would be in such a better spot here. Although, to be fair, I do still get to put out the adventure stuff here, so there is that. Thankfully, the Water Enchantress went to the graveyard and not banished because it was an Xyz material under my Zeus. I don't know why that deck is playing Feather Duster. I remember noting that during the actual game as well. Another Imperm for the Griffin Rider. Oh yeah, because they were negating my Zeus's ability to attach another material. Damn, that was like 2 opportunities where Zeus was actually really close to just getting me super far ahead here. God, if I had been able to Zeus into going into Ancient Cloak Silent Boots, it just would have been over. It would have been so over at that point. And I'm just waiting my time, or just biding my time here a little bit, just trying to be patient. Mostly because I can't battle over, like, it's kind of frustrating here in this situation. Everything my opponent has is like 2,000 defense, and my adventure stuff all has exactly 2,000 attack, so it's going to take Zeus to battle over everything here. Now, they do have a skill drain. I'm going to try to negate it with the Griffin, but they have another freezing curses. But you know what? I'm like, alright, let's just, we got a bunch of stuff. Let's turn it all to attack mode and go for battle here, right? Slumber. Runic Slumber. That protects the mutant from the Zeus, and now, like I said, everything else I have is exactly 2,000 attack. I can't get over this stupid mutant. This game was, I mean, you can probably tell by this point, especially because I think I have 5 cards left in my deck right now. This game was close. It was not, unfortunately, one that I did end up winning, but it was a lot closer than it might have looked. As I pointed out, there were a couple of points where we were like 1 card away from breaking our opponent's board. And that's another reason why I like playing out situations where you have to play from behind, is because it not only, well, teaches you how to play from behind in general, but it also shows you, even in games where you don't end up winning, how close you were to winning. And this is a point that I've made before. There are so many times where people will just casually toss out the word auto loss without realizing how close they were to actually winning. And I think if people didn't just like relegate their losses to being, oh, auto loss, unwinnable, what could I have done? It's like, well, you know, instead of like asking it sarcastically, I think people should genuinely look at, you know, what they could have done and how closely, because, you know, having that information, like next time around, they might not have the extra card, or you might have like a negate to stop it. And knowing that you can play through that kind of a game state will keep you from just like snap conceding to future game states like that. It's really my main point there. So that's going to do it for our duels. Thank you very much for watching these. Let's move now to our outro. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for support supporting there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details, again, will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description, linked below, is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs, as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.